group of nurses stood outside the break room, whispering. I joined them, hoping for some reassurance. "Did you hear it again?" one asked. They exchanged worried glances and nodded. "It's getting worse," another said, her voice trembling. "It sounds like a child." A chill spread through me. How could it be a child? I was about to speak up when one of them mentioned a meeting with management. They hoped to figure out what was happening. I wanted to voice my concerns, but fear gripped me. What if they thought I was imagining it? I stayed silent. As I returned to my station, I felt a weight on my shoulders. Something urged me to go back to room 213. I tried to ignore it. I was leaving my shift when I heard a loud crash from that direction. My heart raced. I rushed back, adrenaline pushing me forward. The door to room 213 was now wide open. I stepped inside, gripping the doorframe for support. The room was darker than before. I flicked on the light and scanned the space. Everything looked in its place, but there was an undeniable chill in the air. Just then, I caught the faintest glimpse of movement from the corner of my eye. A flash of white. "What was that?" I murmured to myself. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I took a step closer to the bed when the lights flickered. My breath caught. Then I saw it. A small figure crouched at the foot of the bed, a childlike shape with hollow eyes staring back at me. I stumbled back, gripping the wall for balance. The figure didn't move, just watched. A part of me screamed to run, but another part was rooted in place, drawn by a mix of curiosity and fear. "Who are you?" I whispered. That's when I heard it again, the soft sobbing. The sound wrapped around me, thick with despair. Then, just as quickly as it came, the figure vanished, leaving me alone in the room. I blinked, trying to make sense of what I had just witnessed. My heart raced as I backed out, every sense screaming at me to leave. I turned to run into the hallway but felt something cold brush against my arm. I whipped around but found nothing there. Panic set in. I bolted toward the exit, my heart pounding in my ears. As I reached the stairwell, I glanced back. The hallway was empty, but that sobbing still echoed in my mind. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed alert, restless, while questions swirled in my head. Who was that child? Why were they in room 213? I needed to know, but deep down, I feared what I might discover. The following night, I returned to work, determined to uncover the mystery of room 213. I felt uneasy, the weight of my earlier encounters hanging over me. I had to know what was happening. As I arrived, I overheard a couple of nurses talking in hushed tones. I got snippets of their conversation, more complaints, disturbing noises, and someone needs to do something. What could they possibly know that I didn't? I approached them, heart pounding. "What's happening with the noises?" I asked, keeping my voice low. They exchanged glances, then one finally said, "It's getting worse. Last night we heard screams." My stomach twisted at that. I felt an urge to check on room 213 again, but fear held me back. Instead, I busied myself with paperwork, fighting to concentrate. Each creak of the floor and distant sobs sent shivers through me. I forced myself to look at the clock, time dragging on as anticipation built to my chest. As my shift wore on, a familiar dread grew. I couldn't avoid room 213 any longer. I told myself it was curiosity, but deep down I knew it was fear that drove me. The hallway seemed darker as I made my way down, the fluorescent lights flickering overhead. The room door was ajar. Everything in me screamed to turn back, but I pushed it open slowly. The air was thick, and the sobbing was louder, wrapped around me like a cold blanket. I stepped inside, breathless. The light flickered again, casting shadows that danced along the walls. Then I saw her, the child, sitting cross-legged on the floor, her dark hair falling over her eyes. "Please," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Help me." My breath caught. In that moment, I felt something in me shift. "Help you with what?" I asked, though my voice was barely above a hoarse whisper. She looked up, her hollow eyes piercing into mine. "Tear it down," she pleaded, pointing to the corner of the room where the shadows felt deepest. "It's stuck inside." I moved closer, my heart racing with each step. What did she mean? Just as I reached for the corner, the lights flickered violently, plunging the room into darkness. The sobbing turned to frantic wails. "Leave," she screamed, and suddenly the coldness enveloped me again. I felt something grab my ankle, pulling me down. Adrenaline surged through me, and I twisted away, scrambling to my feet and sprinting for the door. I burst into the hallway, gasping for air. I stood there for a moment, heart racing and breaths coming in quick gasps. The sobbing had stopped, but I could still hear her words echoing in my mind. "Tear
she mean? I knew I couldn't just walk away. I needed answers. But as I caught my breath, I realized something was off. Behind me, the door to room 213 creaked open again. Exhaling sharply, I turned just in time to see a shadow slip back into the room. I was paralyzed, caught between fear and determination. I needed to confront whatever was waiting inside, and I knew, deep down, that staying away was no longer an option. A part of me felt it was now or never. I took a careful step back toward the door, ready to face whatever lay ahead. I stepped closer to the door, swallowing hard. Every instinct screamed for me to turn and run, but I couldn't shake the child's voice from my mind. I had to know more. With a deep breath, I pushed the door open wider. The room was still dark, but I could make out shapes, the bed, drawers, and the corner where the shadows lingered like dark ink.
I moved inside, cautious and alert. The air was heavy, almost electric. My heart pounded in my chest. "Hello? Is anyone there?" I called softly, hoping for a response, any response, besides the stillness that enveloped me. I scanned the room. For a moment, I thought I had imagined everything, the child, the sounds. But then my gaze landed on the corner she had pointed to. The shadows there seemed to pulse, shifting as if something was trying to break free. "Show yourself," I yelled, surprising myself with my own courage. "What do you want?" Silence filled the space. I took a careful step closer, drawn to the darkness. But as I approached, a low growl lifted the hairs on my neck. My heart raced as I realized the noise was coming from the shadows, a deep, rumbling sound vibrating in the air. Suddenly, a flicker of light illuminated the corner. I squinted, trying to see through the darkness. That's when I saw it, a figure, barely more than a silhouette, crouched low and watching me. I took a step back, fear uncoiling in my stomach. "Please," I whispered, "don't hurt me." The figure shifted, and I could see its outline more clearly, a bark shape with long, twisted limbs. The room felt colder. "I could hear you," came a voice, raspy and cracked, echoing against the walls. I nodded slowly, though a part of me wanted to bolt. I hesitated. "I want to help her." The figure let out a chilling laugh. "Help her? You can't help what you don't understand." I felt a pang of confusion mixed with fear. "What does that mean?" "Some things are better left buried," it hissed, the shadows shifting. I could feel the pull, a dark allure that threatened to swallow me. I turned to escape, desperation rising within me. But before I could leave, the child's voice echoed in the room again, a haunting melody wrapping around my heart. "Tear it down. Only you can free us." Those words consumed my thoughts. I looked back at the dark figure, my resolve strengthening. "I won't let you keep her," I shouted, my voice cutting through the heavy air. Everything went dark again, and I stumbled, my hands reaching for something to hold on to. I crashed into something solid before I felt the chill envelop me. Panic surged through me as I fought against the darkness. Just before it all faded, I heard a final cry, the child's voice mixing with the shadow's laughter, filling the room with a terrifying echo. Then, silence. I woke up in the hallway, the hospital lights glaring above me. People walked past, oblivious to what had just happened. I sat up, heart racing, feeling the weight of their unacknowledged fear settling over me. What did I just experience? What was I supposed to tear down? As I gathered my thoughts, I glanced back at room 213. The door stood closed, but I could feel a pull, an unrelenting urge to return. My path was set, and whatever resided within those walls had not finished with me yet. I would go back, and I would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The next day, I barely slept. Shadows from my dream clung to me, making it hard to focus on anything else. The sunlight streaming through my window felt foreign, almost too bright. I had to go back to that room, to face whatever waited for me inside. After leaving my apartment, I made my way to the hospital again, my pulse quickening with each step. I could feel the weight of the air, thick with memories I had yet to uncover. Once inside, I slipped past the front desk, pretending to be a visitor. My heart raced as I approached room 213. The door was still closed, the brass handle cool to the touch. I hesitated for a moment, recalling the darkness I had encountered. But the child's voice echoed in my mind, urging me to press forward. With a deep breath, I turned the handle and opened the door, stepping into the room once more. This time, the air felt different, charged and expectant. The darkness was gone, replaced with the sterile harshness of fluorescent lights. The bed was perfectly made, and the walls were bare, except for a few framed prints that looked rather mundane. But I felt it, the heavy presence still lurking, watching from the corners of my mind. "Hello?" I called, my voice barely a whisper. The room felt silent, as if holding its breath. I remembered the shadows and the figure, but all that remained were echoes in the back of my mind. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw something move. My pulse raced again as I turned to face the direction of the motion. A child's toy lay on the floor, a small stuffed bear with one button eye. It wasn't there before, was it? I picked it up gingerly, a chill racing down my spine. It felt cold and lifeless in my hands. "What is this?" I murmured, unsure if I was dead or alive at that moment. As I studied it, a soft thudding sound filled the air, like a heartbeat, rhythmic and steady. It drew my attention to the corner of the room once again. I walked toward the shadows, the bear clutched tightly. The noise grew louder, almost beckoning me, when suddenly I heard a scratch. It wasn't just in my head, it was the noise of something dragging against the floor. My stomach dropped. "Who's there?" I called, trying to mask my growing fear. The shadow shifted before me, and I felt a breath of cold air wash over my skin. The child's voice rang out, clear and pleading. "Please, help me." It was the same voice I heard in my dreams. My resolve hardened. I needed to understand. I glanced toward the door, weighing my options. Then I saw it again, the shadow moving, and it merged with the darkness like it was calling to me. "Show me," I yelled, certain that this was my only chance to find the truth. The bear dropped from my hands as I stepped forward, drawn to whatever trapped child was speaking to me from that dark corner. But in that moment, the lights flickered, and everything changed. A figure emerged in the shadows, not the wretched form from before, but something else, something more human, yet still unnatural. I thought I could see a face, the child's face, twisted in fear. My heart pounded as I stumbled back, the weight of what I was witnessing overwhelming. Then, just like that, it all vanished. The figure, the sounds, even the toy were gone. I was left standing alone, gasping in the sudden silence. As I backed away, I noticed something glimmering on the floor, just a small scrap of paper. I knelt to pick it up, my heart sinking. It was a name. My hand shook as I read the faded ink. It was not just any name. It was the child's name. My fingers trembled. Now I had a name, but what would it lead me to? I felt the walls closing in, and I rushed to the door, my mind racing. I had to find out who that child was and break through the veil between the past and the present. Suddenly, a loud thud came from behind me, shaking the room. I jumped and turned toward the corner, dread pooling in my stomach. Something else was there, something I had yet to face. The door creaked as I stepped back, dread tightening its grip on me. I could almost feel eyes on my back, pricking my skin with an unwelcome chill. I took a shallow breath and faced the corner from which the sound had come. My heart thudded in my ears like an unwelcome drum, drowning out everything else. "Who's there?" I asked again, my voice steadier than I felt. Silence enveloped me, and for a moment I thought I had imagined the noise. But then I heard it again, the dragging, softer now, like a whisper waiting to be heard. The cold air thickened with tension. As I took a cautious step forward, my thoughts raced. Was this a prank? Some twisted joke? A part of me hoped so, while another part desperately craved answers. I remembered the name, the child's name from the crumpled paper in my hand. I couldn't just leave, not yet. Suddenly, a heavy breath escaped the shadows, filling the space between us. I froze. There it was again, a hint of movement flickering at the edge of my vision. My heart raced as I forced myself to take another step, my curiosity battling with my fear. "Please,"
The voice came again, more distinct now. Help me. It was more than a plea. It was a cry for rescue. I felt an inexplicable pull toward it, a sense that unearthing this mystery could bring release not just for the child, but also for me. I focused on the shadows, trying to discern any form they might take. That's when I saw it, a small figure, barely visible, crouching against the wall. The outline was thin and quivering, as if it might break apart if I got too close. I felt a wave of compassion washing over my fear. I'm here, I whispered. I can help you. Just tell me how. The figure shifted, and for a moment the lights flickered again. In the dimness, I caught a glimpse of those haunted eyes, the same ones from my dreams.
It took a step forward, revealing itself more, and I saw it. A child, a boy, who looked far too fragile. Then, just as quickly, he retreated into shadow. I didn't want to let him slip away. "Wait!" I cried out, my voice a mixture of dread and desperate hope. The boy paused, turning back to me, his expression a mix of fear and yearning. "You have to find me, before it's too late." "Find you?" I echoed, confusion knitting my brows. "Where are you? How can I help?" The boy opened his mouth to reply, but that's when the temperature in the room dropped. I felt the change, sudden and sharp. The light above me buzzed and flickered once more before plunging the room into darkness. Panic surged through me. Then came the sound, a haunting, jagged laughter echoing through the room, filling every corner until it seemed to vibrate through my bones. My heart raced wildly at the uncertainty of what lurked in the shadows, and I instinctively backed toward the door. But as I moved, I stumbled over something soft. I looked down, my pulse quickening. It was the stuffed bear, somehow back in my path. Confused, I picked it up, feeling the sudden rush of cold enveloping me. "Please, hurry!" the boy's voice echoed once more, tinged with urgency. He had vanished, and with a flick of the lights, the laughter faded into nothing, but the fear remained. I couldn't be trapped here. I had to leave. But that name, the name on the paper, repeated in my mind, and I knew I had to dig deeper. As I reached for the doorknob, my heart hammered furiously. What awaited me outside? Was it safety or something worse? My hands gripped the handle tightly as I prepared to step into the unknown. The door swung open with a reluctant creak, revealing the dimly lit corridor beyond. I hesitated, my instincts screaming at me to turn back. But the urgency of the boy's plea rang in my ears, filling me with a strange determination. Stepping out, I felt a cold breeze sweep past me, and I shivered. My surroundings were eerily quiet, the clinical white walls casting a sterile glow under the flickering lights. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, but I pressed on, glancing around for any sign of the boy or what he wanted me to find. The hallway stretched longer than I remembered, and every step echoed painfully in the stillness. I started toward the nursing station at the end, where shadows shifted and danced in the low light. The buzz of fluorescent lights overhead created a constant, irritating hum, adding to my unease. "Hello?" I called out. No answer came, just the unsettling silence that seemed to wrap around me. I took a deep breath, willing my legs to keep moving. I needed answers. As I approached the station, I noticed the flickering computer monitor, the screen displaying a list of patient names. One in particular caught my eye, a familiar name, the boy's name from the paper. My stomach dropped. I leaned closer, scanning the details. Suddenly, the connection hit me like a bolt of lightning. This boy hadn't just disappeared. He was a patient who had been reported missing just days before. The search had ended in tragedy when the authorities found nothing. My heart raced at the implications. Had I stumbled into some dark part of his story? I needed to know more. I turned to the charting cabinet beside the station, hoping to find documentation or clues. It was locked tight, pounding my impatience and frustration into a boiling knot. I glanced around, ensuring I was still alone, before stepping back to scan the hallway. And then I saw it, a janitor's closet. Without thinking, I approached, my pulse racing. The door stood slightly ajar, and a sliver of light flickered from within. I pushed it open, the sounds of cleaning supplies rattling inside as I stepped in. My eyes drew to the back, a bundle left carelessly on the floor. I approached cautiously, moving closer to discover it was another stuffed bear, worn and tattered. The sight unsettled me. Something pulled my fingers toward it. As soon as I touched its paw, a sudden urge overwhelmed me, a desperate need to help the boy. I could feel something shift in the air. "Help me," the voice whispered again, this time clearer and more urgent. My heart nearly stopped. The lights flickered around me, and I felt a gust of wind that seemed to sweep through the room. Panic coursed through my veins as I realized the reality of the situation. I was being drawn deeper into this dark mystery. Before I could react, the door slammed shut behind me, plunging the small room into darkness. I stumbled backward, my heart racing wildly. I thudded against a shelf, knocking several items to the floor. I felt trapped. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice trembling. The shadows shifted again, and I could feel something watching me. I pressed my back against the shelf, trying to find an escape route. But then, from the corner of my eye, I saw a flicker, a form darting past the crack of the door. A moment later, the door rattled violently. I was not alone. I needed to escape, to find the boy, and uncover the truth before it was too late. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, but the urgency of the boy's plea anchored me in place. I had to confront whatever was out there. I had to find him. I braced myself against the shelf, heart pounding in my ears. The rattling of the door stopped, but the silence that followed felt even more menacing. I strained to hear any movement outside, my breath shallow. The shadows seemed to coil tighter around me, suffocating my thoughts. I had to find a way out. I scanned a cramped closet for anything that might help. My eyes caught a flicker of light from under the door, a glimmering reflection off something metallic. My pulse quickened. I edged closer, hoping to see some sign of life or a chance to escape. That's when I noticed it, a small keychain lying next to the mop bucket, its silver surface gleaming under the dim light. I hesitated before reaching for it, the fear of what I might encounter outside the door making me linger. I grabbed it quickly, shoving it into my pocket as I stepped back to the door. "Just open it," I told myself, but my hand hesitated on the doorknob. Fear curled in my stomach. What if the boy was out there? Or worse, what if something else was waiting? With a shaky breath, I twisted the knob and pushed the door open slightly. The sound of faint voices floated into the closet. 2 figures were standing in the hallway, illuminated by the flickering overhead lights. I pulled back, taking care to stay hidden in the shadows. "Did you hear that?" one of them said, a woman's voice heavy with concern. "It's probably just a rat," the man replied dismissively. But even as he spoke, his eyes darted warily around the corridor. I couldn't afford to be caught. I needed to make a choice, stay hidden and wait, or risk it all to escape. My pulse thudded in my throat. I leaned in closer to hear more, praying for a slip of information. "Something's not right in this place," the woman continued, glancing nervously at the locked doors lining the hallway. "Have you seen the news about the kid?" The kid. I felt a chill wash over me. Were they talking about the boy? I strained to catch more of their conversation. "They say he's been seen here," the man said, his voice lowering. "People have gone missing ever since." A surge of adrenaline pushed me into action. I slipped out of the closet slowly, careful not to make a sound. The figures remained oblivious, their backs turned. I stepped back into the hallway, heart racing, and started to move stealthily toward the nursing station. But as I drew closer, I caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of my eye, a flicker of movement in one of the rooms. I stopped dead. A brief flash of white. Was that a figure standing at the end of the corridor? I squinted, trying to make out the shape. It didn't resemble an orderly or a nurse. The chill deepened, creeping into my bones. My instincts screamed at me to go back. But just as I was about to retreat, a soft whisper echoed, "Help me." I froze. I had no choice. I had come too far to turn back now. I approached the source of the whisper with every nerve on edge. As I peered through the glass of the door, I felt a jolt. That was when I saw it, a small boy sitting on the floor, clutching a nanny, bathed in fading light from a small window. But the shadow lingering beside him, a dark, towering figure, sent ice racing down my spine. My heart sank. I had to do something before it was too late. I took a breath and opened the door. The door creaked quietly as I pushed it open. The boy looked up, eyes wide with fear and desperation. But the shadow, taller, darker, almost palpable, remained fixed, watching me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. "Help me," the boy repeated, his voice trembling. Fear churned in my gut, but I couldn't let it paralyze me. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me, my heart hammering against my ribs. "What's happening?" I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. The boy clutched a small flashlight, illuminating his ashen face and tousled hair. I remained between him and the shadow, but it felt like I was standing between life and a suffocating void. "There's something in here," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It won't let me leave." I glanced at the dark figure again. It shifted slightly, but didn't fully break from the shadows. My instincts screamed to run, but I couldn't abandon this child. "What do you mean?" I pressed, my heart racing even faster. "Every time I try, it gets closer," he said, his breath hitching. "I don't know what it wants." I swallowed hard. "Can you stand?" I asked, extending a hand. He hesitated, but the terror in his eyes told me he had no choice. I needed him to trust me. Slowly he reached out, fingers trembling as they wrapped around mine. As soon as I grabbed his hand, the shadow lunged forward, a dark mass filled with a palpable dread. I yanked the boy behind me, and the flashlight beam flickered wildly as panic surged through the air. "Stay close," I shouted, feeling the cold seep around us. The shadow hesitated, as if it couldn't breach the small barrier of light. It roared, a sound that sent chills rippling through my skin. With the boy at my side, I dashed toward the exit, heart racing with each step. The hallway felt endless, shadows stretching along the walls as if trying to claw us back. I glanced back just once. The figure was closer now, its intentions clear as it lunged again, dark tendrils flailing in the air. We burst through the door into the corridor, where the lights flickered ominously. "Where do we go?" I gasped, dragging the boy along. He scanned the area, panic flickering in his eyes. "Upstairs," he shouted, pointing to a stairwell at the end of the hall. I nodded and raced toward it, the sound of chaos echoing behind us. The shadowing presence followed, fueled by something sinister that I couldn't quite understand. We reached the stairwell, pushing through the door and running up the seemingly endless stairs. The boy was panting hard, struggling to keep up, but I didn't dare look back. I had to find an exit, a chance to escape whatever had been unleashed. As we reached the top floor, the lights flickered once more. I hesitated, staring at a door labeled Roof Access. "Do we go out?" he asked, taking a shaky breath. "Maybe, but what if it follows us?" I feared the answer. I turned the knob, feeling hope and dread clash inside me. That's when I heard it, a high-pitched laughter echoing through the corridor. It sent a jolt of terror down my spine. I turned to the boy, sizing up the threat behind us. We didn't have much time. "Get ready," I said, clutching the keychain tightly in my hand. "On 3, we go." But then everything shifted. An unfamiliar pressure pressed down, warping the air around us. I tore my gaze away from the door just as the darkness coiled tighter, rushing toward us. "3!" I shouted. Would it be enough? But no sooner had I opened the door than the world around us plunged into shadow. As the darkness enveloped us, I felt the boy's grip tighten on my arm. The air crackled with a strange energy, curdling my stomach. I couldn't drown in the unknown. I had to face this. I pushed through the door, staggering into the rooftop, sounds of the city, a faint hum below us. We stumbled onto the roof, and the second I turned to see what lay behind us, I was met with a wall of shadows threatening to swallow us whole. They undulated like a living entity, and I began to doubt if we had truly escaped. My instincts screamed at me to run even faster, to put as much distance as possible between us and whatever that was. "Where do we go?" the boy whimpered, glancing back at the encroaching darkness. Just outside the door, the chill intensified, and the laughter spiraled up from the depths of the building, an echo carrying an unsettling promise. "There!" I yelled, pointing toward the ledge of the roof. We could climb down from there. There had to be a fire escape. My throat dried up as I wondered if it was worth the risk. Would it even lead to safety? But we couldn't stay here, not with the shadow lunging toward us. Together, we rushed to the edge. I could hear the roar of the wind against the buildings beside us, drowning out everything else. My heart raced as I peered over the ledge. Below, a metal ladder clung to the side of the building. I took a deep breath. "We can make it," I assured the boy. "On 3, he echoed, his eyes wide with a mix of determination and fear. 1, 2, the shadows surged onto the roof, their laughter reaching a fever pitch. 3! We leapt toward the ladder, fingers clawing for the rungs as our feet barely met the edge. I barely felt the impact as we landed, scrambling down the metal grid with desperation fueling our movements. Each rung felt like a sprint into the unknown, the urgency palpable as the laughter echoed behind us, chilling my bones. Finally, I planted my feet on the ground, barely registering the gasp escaping my lips. I turned to check on the boy, who landed behind me, eyes wide, his face a mask of terror. "We have to run," I urged, and we bolted away from the building as fast as we could, racing down the alley, every echo of our footsteps drowned out by the chaos in my mind. It didn't take long before we reached the street. A part of me wanted to keep looking back, to see if anything followed, but another part urged me to push forward. We couldn't stop yet. "What happens now?" the boy panted, glancing behind him. I didn't have an answer. I felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down with every step. "I don't know," I admitted, "but we can't go back. We won't let it catch us." We ran until madding lights and the echoes of laughter faded into the distance, and when we reached a small park, I took a moment to catch my breath. The boy ragged behind, clutching his knees as he leaned over. I watched him closely, my heart heavy. "Are you okay?" I asked gently. He straightened, his haunted eyes locking onto mine. "I may have escaped, but it's not over. It can still find me." The words hung between us, heavy with unspoken fears. I frowned, remembering the grip of the shadow, its promises twisting through my mind. "What do we do now?" "I need to go back," he said, facing me seriously. "Only then can we stop it. You have to help me find the key to freeing the others, breaking the cycle." A feeling of dread pooled in my stomach. "But I thought we escaped." He shook his head, and the stoic resolve in his eyes sent a chill through me. "That thing? It feeds on fear and darkness. As long as I'm alive, it will always know where I am." Suddenly, the world seemed to tilt beneath me. How was I supposed to help him? My eyes fell to the stuffed bear still clutched in my hand, its fabric now warm against my palm. I squeezed it tightly. "Then we will find a way," I said finally, uncertainty bubbling inside me. "We'll confront it. Together." As we began to plot our next move, I felt a lingering sense of something watching us, skimming the edges of my awareness. I still didn't have answers. I didn't know what lay ahead or what had truly happened in that hospital room, and that scared me. But I knew this. We were bound together by the shadows, and as long as I had the strength to fight, I would carry that weight with me. Whatever awaited us in that darkness would not go unchallenged. Whatever it was, we would face it together.